a.m. in Kenya, almost sleeping time, but let's gather here for short reaction towards Kenyan news. Of course, the first is a very sad news that fell on our ground some week earlier, and yesterday was the final day that had to be put to rest. Okay, so remembering the 24 NAKI victims who actually died following a travel from a funeral, finally had to leave Kenyans sad and mourning and crying during the proceeding to Nyakach. So we'll be watching this shortly as we discuss this, but it's a very sad moment. And of course, one of the things people insist, or a lesson people insist, is that possibly when going for a celebration or even a moment, it is very dangerous to travel in a common vehicle. Now, it's not even only a moment of family, but as a group. We've seen various moments in which the Catholic women, for example, died in Tanzania. We saw another situation of young people who are going for the Tembelea Mama and they died. Is it in Meru or Nyeri there? And now we've seen this one when people are coming from morning. In fact, another one happened in Taita Taveta yeah, just on the way to Bundanyi. There was a bus that rolled over and so many people died. So seemingly away from maintaining roads and being careful in driving, it just seems like a dangerous thing to actually gather in one moment and travel together. Now, we don't mean that people shouldn't actually accrue funds to travel together, but suddenly it happens to be a crisis in some time, all right? Magda Olivia, who always says is known as Casey, welcome on board. I don't understand why you have different names, Magda Olivia, at the same time Casey. Maybe I need to know, because I've seen here you're normally my top fan, watching my videos as the top fan, and I see the two names. What is the history behind it? Anyway, you would chat in the in the comment section below as I proceed with the analysis. So of course it was a very sad moment. Anybody who is human who actually felt this, you know. Ladies and gentlemen. Magda Olivia is asking something. Okay, ask something. Okay, so these clips were really a sad moment. All right. Commercial break, commercial break, commercial break. Hey, this advertisement of from Nigeria, from Ghana. Magda Olivia, what did you want to ask? Welcome on board and like the video for me, please. Like the video as we proceed with the discussion. All right, so this was one of the sad moments, and I think you actually saw a lot of people taking videos and watching along the roads, all right? Joseph Mungai. We are into politics, but we started with the sad aspect of the 20 Nakuru, the Naki bus victims, you remember? Okay. Hi. 26 family members, in fact. They died in a cruise accident. All right, so Joseph Mungai, hi, welcome on board. You came when I already started, and our discussion today surrounds the 26 NAKI bus victims, you remember? And it was very sad yesterday as they were exiting to burial. And of course, I know that this is one of the things that will not be forgotten, just like we remember the Mall of Fire. We also remember the one in which a lot of people died in a crash, you know, where motor vehicles crashed the sellers of tomatoes, you know. So those are some of the sad moments we can never forget in the country, and that is why I started with that sad moment and back to other political aspects. So guys, of course, you've seen a lot of attacks on Gachagua, and I am just surprised that I can't see any latest news, maybe Gachagua himself coming out and speaking something and all that. We are all using stale news, and I'm not sure why, you know, because there were threats about him being arrested, and then we saw Sudi um, getting to fly to America. But when Sudi flew to America, it was just a moment when Gachagua cut his journey, or rather trip in America, and said he had had a nice moment and he's finally traveling home. While some people speculated that possibly they are going to have an agreement so that he works alongside, that is Ruto, I was very suspicious about it, and I don't think that could happen. My thought was possibly that there is something else going on. And of course, what is coming out is possibly that Sudi wanted to go there and create some sagas surrounding Gachagua so that he waters down the trips he had made to different places, Seattle and all that. And of course, yesterday you saw my reaction, which I did. There was a given man who has always been organizing meetings even for the former government and current, and they actually betrayed him. So he's working alongside Gachagua, and from his announcement, he indicated that Sudi was actually trying to use the tribal discussions on Gachagua just to win over. Yet the reality is that when Gachagua was in America, he was visiting different people, not just the people from the mountain. All right, so let's hear something here on someone speaking about the same before we proceed, all right? And meanwhile, remember, we've had Duale. Duale has had to talk about Gachagua. So we'll be looking at that later. But let's begin with what I want to focus on first before we proceed to something different, all right? Okay. Hey, it seemingly happens that my bundles are flying very fast. I was loading a premier. The premiers eat a lot of bundles. The lucky thing with it is that once you load the berry. All right, so there was a bundle issue here. The berry. All right, so there was a bundle issue here because I was premiere at the same time I was working on this video here. So thank you for being patient with me, and let's walk through what I was to show here. My goodness, somebody calling. What's up? Oh, very unfortunate. Ningekuwa na simu ya kurekod na kureceive. Alafu pia nafanya kamera inapotea. Sasa hii imepotea kamera. Iko dark. What do I do here now? Jesus Christ. The camera has been lost, so it's dark. Oh, this is the problem with someone calling when you are on live stream. Imekuwa sasa dark. Jesus, now what happens here? My goodness, sometimes I do find myself having the microphone muted and I don't know. I didn't know that it's mute. Thank you so much, Jacqueline Anunga. Thank you so much. So I'll have to replay that. So it seems you didn't even hear what was being said, all right? So let me just replay it for the sake of what I want to discuss, all right? Thank you so much. Wow, hiyo sukari hata nyinyi wenyewe, if you are taking such sugar.
Na kwa vile sasa wameshikana na baba, tumerudi ile siasa ya 2007. The days of entitlement is over. The days of entitlement that one community is more important than any other community is gone. It has gone after the new constitution, after the advent of devolution. Wewe Rigathi Gachagua, usituputu na usijaribu kutukana jamii ya Wasomali na Waislamu katika nchi. Usijaribu. Unajua kuwa na mdomo chafu sana. William Ruto is becoming a victim of these political shenanigans because he wants to unite the people of Kenya.
All right. So, Adwan Duale had to speak. He decided to speak, calling Gachagua mdomo chafu, dirty mouth, and warning him not to actually call the Somali people, you know, of course you understand, all right? I don't want to use the words because he was saying he doesn't want them to be called the terrorists, because Matiang'i killed a lot of people. The accusations that go on in this country, you wonder why people cannot go in court. They cannot go to court, but they can come to the social media and speak what they want to speak, all right? Another thing that really worries a lot of Kenyans is that when they start doing this, it's like they're exciting people to react, yeah? And of course, those who are speaking are beneficiaries of the current system, and that is why they are saying that Ruto has done 4 times what Kenyatta did, what Uhuru did, and what whoever did. The reality is that if you see them backing, it's because they have benefited from the current government. No wonder the other day, Duale was in the same meeting where a lady from Garissa or Isiolo promising that they'll have to fill the baskets if they come, no matter what. So we've seen that people are really asking the government to step aside, but they are not. And in that case, they now play victims, of course. And that is why Adwan Duale is coming here to say that even the current president has turned into a victim. That is what he's telling us, all right? So is he trying to play an emotional game to the citizens? What exactly is happening? Now, let's listen to Natembeya. Let's listen to Natembeya because Natembeya is also another one that is actually demanding for change, all right? Is demanding for change. And that demand for change is coming through the way he's speaking for the citizens, okay? And he is speaking for the citizens who have gone through a season of suffering, okay? And marginalization. Marginalization is a common concept in Kenya that happens. And that's why people like Spele or Yam don't have platforms to discuss their matters. What they simply do is go to other people's platforms and try to use very useless words. You know, if you come to somebody's platform and the only words that can come out of you are the same words that can come out of a drunkard, then I wonder which space you occupy, because you do not even matter in whatever you say, and you cannot silence anybody, all right? As long as we are speaking the truth, that is why it's irritating you. They always say truth is bitter, okay? I wish Jacqueline Anunga, Joseph Mungai, and Magda Olivia, alongside others who came earlier, should actually school Speleo Riam, you know. He's an emotionally driven individual, okay, that is actually coming here to pour out his emotions, regardless of having just popped around without knowing what we are discussing and why we are discussing. And no wonder sometimes Kenya will suffer for a long time, because we have people who go with emotions and they run around and they want to run their mouth without even checking or receiving what they are saying. Because you don't have to come with such words to somebody's platform. You can go to your own platform and speak whatever you want to speak, because the space is too big and it allows everybody, it allows everybody to go about and say what they want to say, do their analysis in their own opinion. And that is why this one is known as a life saga TV. Speleo, you are a life saga yourself, by using such words as a kid would use or a drunkard would use. And I would not be doubting if you're not drunk. You are drunk of something. If you're not drunk of marijuana, you are drunk of some alcohol, or you are drunk of some funny shenanigan, all right? Okay, so we can now proceed to Governor Natembeya and how he had to storm Bungoma. Of course, you know, Wetangula was there in a funeral, and Natembeya is actually representing a voice of certain people that is in Kenya. Not just the Luya, as it appears. It may appear that he is talking for the Luyas, but the reality is that he is reminding marginalized societies in Kenya to come up and speak for themselves. If from every other community people will come up and speak as he is doing, then they'll realize that indeed marginalization is real in Kenya. We have societies who have been marginalized for long because they don't have representation. And if they have people in government, those people are selfishly representing themselves and their families. So you will actually see that these people are progressing, but the society within which they come from has not. Look at the situation of Bungoma, for example. I remember when people are going for a funeral there, one of the people, or MP, came about laughing on social media and saying that in Bungoma people are still having mud houses, the roads are, some of them through the interior are poor, and Wetangula has been in leadership for so long. However, all he cares about is his family and those surrounding him, not those who are far from him. He does not care about improving the entire society. And that is why Natembeya is actually shaking a lot of forces, or rather his voice is speaking for a lot of people. If you follow his voice, he's not just speaking for the Luyas, he's also speaking for the marginalized communities in Kenya, maybe let's say Giriamas, Taitas, or whichever. Because if they pick the same message and go to their people and speak the same thing, of course they'll understand that there is need for leadership not to be a tribal aspect, but as an aspect of representation whereby all people are represented, where we don't look at it and say it is ours. Because currently, if you look at the current regime and even the former ones, it's like when the president goes into the office, then people begin to say, our leader is in, all right? Our leader is in, and so we have our share. And that is even what happened surrounding Gachagua, what happened surrounding Wetangula, Mudavadi, and for Mudavadi and Wetangula, they seem to have picked their shares to their families, all right? Okay, so this aspect of shares should stop so that representation of every citizen is felt, so that growth of the entire nation is felt. It's not about one place and the other, all right? And the aspect of also calling each other terrorists and all that. Terrorists come from all over the place. They don't come from Somalia alone or wherever it is. And of course, beginning to attack certain communities in a certain way may not be very suitable. But Adan Dale, the way we know, of course, he is not even the best. He is not the exemplary leader who can tell us that he now represents what the world needs, or there is peaceful aspect, or rather uniting of Kenya. Yet, it is from one of his side, we saw a lady saying that they are going to fill the baskets, just like Sudi said the same. And we heard also this guy from Masai land saying the same, all right? So let's listen to Wetangula before we proceed. not Wetangula, but natembea. T, what is it?
Na nyumba ya mwenyewe akizafika mahali anaamua anatoa mlango ama anatoa mabati. Utafanya nini? Watoto wetu wamesoma ile madigrii ambayo iko Bungoma na iko Trans Nzoia yake ya Mungu kiaona. Utatoa machozi. Na hiyo madigrii yote iko kwa boda boda. Bomo anawanga atimia nge boda boda. Ngene kazi ni yokwe. Na hilo mtoto boda boda mwenyewe hata akipata tu ajali saa hizi angwe pale kwa barabara. Akienda hospitali angwe toa shilingi 100. Haki ya Mungu hawezi toa. Hana. Jamii yetu, jamii ya Muluya ilikuwa ni jamii ilikuwa proud. Basi akula mbaya chaka afuje birelisia. Chaka afuje fo cha chawai.
Tutakulala.
Tunaenda kujikomboa. Heshima ya Muluya inaenda kurudi. Ile madharau mnaona madharau inaenda kufanya nini? Ukwishi. Mnagawana kura mingi mingi, yule mchaplisi mkora ndiye anashinda. Paka yenyewe kitangazo ameshinda kwanza yeye mwenyewe anashangaa nilipata hiki kitu namna gani. Bandu befe moya machunga bwami. Kwa mila kwa MC, chakwa MC yomulai omayile masisoke.
All right, so of course, Natembeya went speaking somehow in his own dialect and all that, but the emphasis was on the fact that there is need for proper leadership, all right? It is some very controversial matter for some people, but it is what it is. The reality is that everyone will speak in their voice, and depending on where they are, the beneficiaries, of course, will praise and worship and say that this is this. But those who have suffered, they'll speak in a different voice, and that is the reality, okay? So regardless of what Speleo Riam, I don't know where he has gone. I was enjoying his drama, and he should continue with the drama so that we see how far he can go and to how many platforms he can go. I don't know how many he has visited and actually thrown an ugly face of himself, then disappeared, all right? Okay, so let's check on another aspect. Of course, the Harambee Stars have finally been given a celebratory mode, of course, something to ignite them. I hope as they play with Zimbabwe, they'll be winning again, okay, in our political aspects. Now, one of the controversial discussions that has been running also on the media is Akothee and Nuru Okanga. Nuru Okanga is very, one of the people who is very, vocal on everything, including some things that he shouldn't mind about. And of course, it has led him to problems because he talked a lot of, it is good to talk about some things, but again, minding the language you would use. So if you listen to Nuru Okanga attacking Akothee, he actually used a very bad language. I remember that day I did a reaction on the same and indicated that, of course, when you're correcting some ills, you don't use the ugly language just as Nuru Okanga did. We don't actually appraise what Akothee did, but it is her style, is her choice, okay? And of course, she has adult kids, and some who are even married, who can correct her if they feel that is uncomfortable. For Kenyans, generally talking about it as a bad thing is okay, but going to the extremes as well. Okay, so our discussion still continues, yeah? And you remember all that, of course. You remember all that happening, and finally Nuru Okanga was put to questioning, and it is a lesson to many people because as far as we may want to correct things, the language we may use will really matter. The language we may communicate through really matters, okay? Okay, so for whatever I'm discussing, of course, you can go back and watch on social media and what people have to say. Now, Kenya is one of the countries where people forget things so fast, okay? Including the leaders themselves. That is why they promise and they won't do it. Watatenga na hawatafanya. Sometimes people trend so much on the social media that you would think they'll stay there forever, only for them to be forgotten in a blink of an eye. And one of such situations that has been just dug out again is the situation of the twins who were found in Kakamega, of course. And if you look at the today's news, you'll see that digging deep into their story, it has been realized that the twins have been forgotten. They were never helped by Kakamega Hospital. Some of the things we call about negligence and lacking care, all right? Because the hospital actually traumatized them, caused a lot of harm and damage to the three girls. But even currently, the fact that they took them to schools, good schools, and forgot even to pay the fees. Now, some of them are in the university, the two, of course, the twins are in the university, but the burden of paying fees is on their parents. And the truth is that they were never even cancelled, you know. It's something surprising. Okay, if you missed on the story, let's just check on this shortly and we can proceed. Okay.
National. Na hiyo extra county na national ilikuja kwa na school fees ya bei ya juu. So you see, like, people come, commit mistakes, and things just go like that, and they do not even care what happened.
The mother of 10 says she held several fundraisers to clear the school fees balances of the girls, but she still remains with arrears of over 100,000 shillings. She was
The commercials.
With the movies. She says watching her sisters break down even as she deferred her studies due to financial. But now they claim that they were misled and
Ndio familia yangu. Hasa wakati DNA ilitoka, hasa ndio akasema mimi ni wa huko Nairobi. Iliniumiza sana.
Mavis says that
Alright.
she tried to stay in
So of course, if you remember that story, you can go back to the social media and check on it, Sharon, and the other two. And of course, the reality is that in Kenya, people forget things a lot and very fast. The lesson from this is that these are life sagas. These are life sagas, and that's why I have to bring this here too. Because the reality is that when maybe an institution has messed with your life, let's say university or even a hospital, they may cheat you not to sue against them for whatever negligence or damages. If you are fooled into doing so, once the situation is calmed and people forget, they'll just bury it, you know. That's what happens in Kenya. People are very fast in burying aspects. What people discuss so much this year will be forgotten just maybe in a blink of an eye. So it becomes very relevant that Kenyans should not actually be fast, especially if somebody has messed up with your life. Don't be so fast in just forgiving and take place. Let the person compensate you, then now the rest can come. But accepting just to cool it like that is something that should not happen. All right, let's get to our last story for today. We get to the last story for today before we bury everything here. Of course, we were talking about this Harambee Stars aspect. Okay. What do you want?
This is a wonderful show, and we are truly happy. The nation is happy. I told you, Kenyans are supporting you from every corner, the streets, the farms, everywhere. And thank you very much for lifting our country and our state affairs.
All right. So that was a short moment between Raila, Ruto, and Harambee Stars after beating Zambia in Chan 2024, whatever, all right? The reality is that maybe if Kenya will continue supporting the talents, people might be motivated to do better, especially now football, which has not been doing very well in Kenya. And with the change in leadership, of course, we hope that everything will be better, okay? So that is our last story of the day, and maybe I'll be prepare better for the tomorrows to go on and do more. Let me go back to Edutainment for Us channel to do another video before I sleep. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your presence, save for one person who actually came to spoil our day, but he was not able to do so. Thank you. Have a good night. Hey.